In our industry, there were not that many real users using their chain or applications. They had to figure out a way to inflate the numbers a little bit more in order to make it look better.
Erick Zhang was one of the first hires at Binance and helped build Binance Research and Launchpad. Later, he became CEO of CoinMarketCap. Today, he's the founding partner at NOMAD Capital, backing early-stage Web3 startups around the world. From being in the trenches of crypto's early days to now shaping its next wave, Erick's seen it all.
What do you see the crossroads between AI and crypto?
If an AI agent use the traditional fiat payment channels, right, it requires a lot of authorization. There will be a lot of friction when they do execution. But if you just integrate crypto to do a lot of transactions, some other executions, it can be more autonomous. I was always joking that the Western founders are better at doing performance art. They are good at building a strong brand. I think this is kind of a cultural dominance over the Eastern. This happens in many areas.
Hello and welcome to Buidlpad, where AI meets crypto, technology meets humanity, and East meets West. I'm Buidlpad, the co-founder of Cypher Capital. Subscribe now and be part of the conversation. My guest this week is Erick Zhang. Erick is the founder of NOMAD Capital, a crypto venture fund, and a former Binance leader. He joined Binance in 2017, leading the Binance Research and Launchpad, where he helped launch over 20 successful ICOs, including Polygon and Axie Infinity. Before crypto, he worked in banking. He also founded Buidlpad in 2024 to revolutionize the crypto fundraising industry. Erick, thank you for joining us.
Sure. Hey, thanks, Bill, for having me.
Congrats on the successful launch on the Buidlpad. Can you share a little bit background about why you want to build up a ICO platform at this point of time?
So last year, when I look at a lot of data, first of all, there's so much criticism towards the high FTV projects. A lot of the projects got listed on the centralized exchanges like Binance, Bybit, OKX, but the price just crashed, right? There's a sample of 50 high FTV projects, excluding meme coins, that we look at. More than 80% of those had negative return compared to the price of the first day listing.
Are those the 50 token launched on Binance or other tier 1.5 projects as well?
Including Binance, Bybit, and OKX.
Okay, so pretty much the tier 1 batch.
Correct. And then around half of those had a price drop of more than 50%, which was very bloody. That was the data from late last year. I'm pretty sure if you look at the data now, it's even worse, right? Because of the recent market crash in the past few weeks. Then the issue was pretty clear to me, at least. There was this airdrop mechanism, right? Apparently that didn't work well.
But what is their motivation? Why the project founder want to do so many airdrop? Even they understand that would be the potential dump.
I think the answer was also pretty obvious, which was in our industry, there were not that many real users using their chain or applications. They had to figure out a way to inflate the numbers a little bit more in order to make it look better, or let's say to pass the exam of the exchange listing, right? To say it very bluntly.
Yeah, so that's their motivation. But you mentioned basically airdrop in the end of the day turned out to be a very negative result, right?
It is. I think there's definitely the cons outweigh the pros for sure. If we look at the ICO days, or you can call it community sale, I do think is a good solution. It does not solve all the issues, but I think it solves some of the issues to a great extent because users have a cost basis, right? They have to pay to buy the tokens. There's a very simple fundamental principle we all need to keep in mind is people do not value things they got for free. They will just immediately dump if you got something, the airdrop, which was mostly free. Then when we look at some of the data during the ICO days, this was actually first-hand data when I was doing the Binance Launchpad. 30% of the the Launchpad participant did not sell their tokens upon listing. Some of them even bought more. Why? Because they pay something. They have more skin in the game. They are more aligned on the interest. They are more motivated to stay with the project longer term. So that's why I think it made a lot of sense. And if you look at the ICO platforms on the market, I do think there is still a gap. That's why I was like, okay, let's just do it by ourselves. And also there's a good way to help our existing portfolio at Nomad Capital. Yeah, those basically that's the motivation.
Awesome. So basically, you are saying, the free launch is really inactive, but launch with discount in the end can motivate a lot of people to buy and hold or even double down.
Correct. And very, very importantly, I think a lot of the projects, right, launched last year or in the past 2 years, the listing happened, then afterwards no one talked about them, right? That happens a lot, right? This is almost as if they did not exist before, which was quite surprising. But I think the issue was no one made money from those projects, right? Other than maybe the airdrop farmers, right, which is a very small group of people, and centralized exchanges, and maybe the project teams themselves. But no real users made money. So that's why, like on social media, right, there's no discussion around them post listing was very bad because no one cared them anymore. You have to make some of your community members make money so they can be continue to be engaged, right? And share some, pay attention to the progress of the project and just follow what's going on and share with their followers, right?
So you mentioned basically, try to avoid the airdrop, maybe one of the key advice to the founders. In general, like, what would be your observation or advice to a founder? Is there a alternative or innovative token launch strategy?
First of all, I think there are two things, right? One is I think founders should still consider taking capital from good VCs, right?
Mm.
But
What is the
um,
definition of a good VC? Are they Paradigm or A16Z? What is good?
I think the ones that can really share their connection, right, their
Mm.
resource,
Value add.
right, value add with founders and share their previous building experience with the founders and help them avoid detours, right, the pitfalls, instead of just providing capital and then leave them alone. Then you basically the founders should reserve a relatively small portion, right, to those value add VCs, and then reserve a relatively bigger portion for community sale as, first of all, user acquisition strategy, and the second as a good, very good marketing campaign, right, to get more marketing exposure.
Okay, so basically you are providing three advice. One is try to avoid the airdrop. Don't provide the free launch. Second is raise a small portion from a high quality reputational VC with a very
Yep.
strong value add. The
Yep.
third point would be leverage and utilize the community sale as much as possible.
Correct. In order to bootstrap a relatively genuine real community
Mm.
instead of having a lot of airdrop farmers, right, to dump on yourself or the community upon the listing, right, which is very, very humble.
Yeah, that make a lot of sense. And a side question would be, what would be your advice to most of the VC investors? I think like the VC investors they become the victim of the crypto in this season as well, along with the retail investor. And what's your advice on them? Like how they can generate more return in next season? I understand this season is very bloody.
Yes. So I guess I can only share like yeah, every VC have their own approach, right? So I can only
Yes.
share like our approach, I guess, which I think fits ourselves. I do think finding alpha, right, among these hundreds or thousands of projects is extremely tough, right? My assumption for myself is we cannot find alpha, right, among these thousands of projects in order to beat the benchmark, right? However, I think we can, plus there's such a long lockup, right, which is like typically 1 plus 3 years, and there are many ways the project teams themselves can front run the VCs, which is kind of weird. This doesn't happen very often in Web2, but anyways, that's the kind of situation in crypto. But the other assumption is we can generate alpha, right? The VC that I admire the most is Sutter Hill Ventures, the one that incubated a lot of SaaS companies, right, including Snowflake and many other like billion valuation companies. The Sutter Hill Ventures partner was even the CEO of Snowflake for the first about 2 years. So they were very low key. They did a very limited number of incubation or investment but the hit rate is very, very high. I think their approach is just do less and do it well.
Yeah, I think that there's an institutional venture builder role model, but also it pop up in my mind. There is an individual venture builder very successful as well, who is Elon Musk, right?
Yeah.
He's one individual, and also he launched a very selective portfolio and incubated.
Yeah, right. I think for us is probably Flat Hill Ventures is fits us better. I think Elon Musk is outlier, to be honest. I typically do not use people like that as a reference. And then to answer your question earlier, I think the other thing we were thinking, at least for us, was based on the data in the past 2 years, at least there's still opportunity on the secondary market for the investment firms to get in right into the liquid deals, either through OTC or you directly buy on the secondary market right upon listing. Because typically in the first few days or weeks or months, there's very high sell pressure, and sometimes the valuation was even close or a little bit lower than the valuation on the private market, right? So as an investment firm, you would rather get into the liquid market directly with similar or slightly higher valuation even, but this low lockup, right? So I think that's another way that we were thinking.
Okay, so in a sense, you are recommending one is try to build the alpha instead of seeking alpha. The second point would be put more efforts into the liquid market, because in that way you can get some alpha which is undervalued.
Yes, but I think for us is even we did some liquid deals, we still do a lot of research or DD or even work with the projects very closely, right? In order to be part of this, I usually call it the alpha generation process, right? So we have to help the projects grow and scale. Right. We typically do not just look at what's happening on the market and say, oh, this one is a good pick, right? Without being involved in the building process, I think invest. I think that's just too risky for us.
Well said. Basically, you think the golden age of passive investment to get alpha, that is over already.
I think so. I think in the previous cycles, because the supply of the projects was much less than it is right now. Right now, like every day, because of the new approaches of launching tokens, right, meme coins or whatever. Every day there's hundreds or 1,000 projects coming up, right? The selection is definitely much tougher than before, right? Previously there was not that many, so it's pretty easy, but now it's different time.
Yeah. Amazing. Let's also discuss about the interesting change of the landscape of the market. This season the DEX volume go up a lot. Pumped up from Hyperliquid got a lot of attention. What do you see the evolvement of centralized exchange and DeFi along the way in next few years?
So I remember a few years ago in 2019 when DeFi started to gain a little bit of attention. For the spot market, the DEX market share was under 1%, right? Now, if you look at
When was that?
it
1%.
was 2019, right? Before
That was
the
tiny.
summer, right? Then the market share today is around 20%, right? I think if I'm not mistaken, during the meme coin craziness in the past few months, the market share was even like 30% or even higher, right? Which is crazy. So I do think this will continue to the DEXs will definitely continue to grow and take more market share from the centralized exchanges. This will happen for sure, right? I think all the centralized exchanges themselves even agree. I think the centralized exchanges will evolve in a few directions. One is CX like OKX is already doing so, right? They have the unified UI. Basically, the users can get access to DeFi and centralized exchanges through like one UI. If you open their OKX app today, it actually pops up the DEX directly. instead of the CX.
So they prioritize this.
Yeah, so they are disrupting themselves, right? Ideally, I think in the next phase, users only need to manage like one wallet, right, through the exchange platform and get access to the liquidity of both the CX and the DEXs without knowing where the liquidity comes from, right? And without the need of transferring money from their custodial wallet and non-custodial wallet, which is quite troublesome these days. And then the second thing is, I do think the centralized exchanges market share will also lose to not only the decentralized exchanges, but also to some local regulated exchanges, right? Basically, I think the room for the offshore centralized exchanges will be less and less, right? It will has to be regulated locally in different countries, or they have to move to the decentralized exchange route, which I think every centralized exchange is trying to do already.
Yeah, I agree with this point very much. If we take analogy of the credit card business, in the end of the day, there is not many, global players of the credit card. In the end of the day, all the regional policymakers, they want to sort of empower their own licensed players, right?
Yes, exactly. I think that's a good data point to refer to as well.
Cool. Let's pivot the gears a little bit and we talk about the innovation. We work closely with each other during the Binance tenure, and
Yeah.
you launched a very successful Launchpad and listing operation, etc. Polygon, Axie Infinity were those signature deals. But do you think we're gonna witness more disruptive innovation in next few years, or it's gonna be a boring growth period to witness, USDT and Binance growing their size?
My thesis is this could be wrong, right? It's just I think the most difficult thing is to predict how the
The
market will
future.
happen, right?
Mm,
I think for the infra level, right, the public chain basically, I don't think we need too much new stuff there, right? The performance of the public chain right now is actually good enough to support
mm,
most of the applications already. I do think there will be a lot of interesting, exciting things we didn't expect before happen in the application level, right? Using pump.fun as example. Previously, I think we could all expect some new form of casino would definitely happen, right?
mm.
We don't know like in what kind of form it will happen. Then this new Polygon fund when it first came up, I actually I played a little bit. I thought not sure whether it could take off, right? But it took off massively, and this is just one example. I'm pretty sure like in the next phase of the cycle, stuff like this, right, will definitely happen. We saw a lot of very interesting, like there's another one called I think Anatoly mentioned the other day, like time.fun, right? Basically to monetize your time, things like that. It could be a little bit early, but who knows? It may things always happen sooner than we expected, right? So I think there will be more innovation for sure happen in the application level.
Application layer. Okay. But for infrastructure, you think there are enough airport, aka the infrastructure already?
Yes, I think so. If you look at the performance of Solana, Sui, right, that you guys invested, I think, which was a very successful deal. The full performance is very strong. It can support those very heavy, large scale gains already, right? Let alone those low frequency type of applications like chat or payment. So I think that's far more enough right now. The reason that we saw there are still a lot of new infra coming up is because it's much harder to do application, right? There are not that many real users anyway in our industry. So if you build an application, it's very easy to be proven wrong, right? If you build a long-term infra project, it's actually you can argue that it will take time for it to gain attention to grab users, right? But
Yeah.
essentially, I don't think so. I don't think we need more.
Definitely. On application layer, what do you see the crossroads between AI and crypto? My witness is so far, there are a lot of tier 4, tier 5 so-called AI crypto project, right? All the tier 1 AI project, they don't care about crypto that much. But I do think, crypto can be a flywheel for any tech projects. So what do you see the crossroads between AI and Web3?
Honestly, I think the synergy or intersection is not super strong, or there's not too many like use cases, right, for the intersection of crypto and AI. However,
Mm,
I think for payment, right, in general, will make AI or AI agent execution more efficient. If an AI agent use the traditional fiat payment channels, right, it requires a lot of authorization, right? There will be a lot of friction when they do execution. But if you just integrate crypto to do a lot of like transaction, some other executions, it can be more autonomous and seamless. I think that's probably the story that most of the AI agents was trying to sell, right, in terms of the intersection between AI and crypto. Other than that, genuinely, I actually do not think there has to be a
mm,
intersection between these two, to be honest. But I do think the efficiency, right, crypto making AI agent more efficient is a very strong value for sure, right? I think that's a
mm.
very very big value add.
Okay, so I guess at least you agree that blockchain can be the native internet or the settlement network for all the AI agents in the future.
To a certain extent, right? I think this is also a topic I thought about recently. I think AI, right, and also like the exchanges we discussed just now, like DEXs or central exchanges, will have to be regulated, and there will be this permissioned world. There's this permissionless world. In the permissionless world, I would say yes. So the blockchain, crypto would become the basic settlement layer for AI agent, right? Maybe there's no need to do KYC, etc. At least in certain jurisdictions, right? There's no way to 100% block, right, blockchain or the usage of crypto, because people can always find a way to go around, right? But I think this permissioned and permissionless world will coexist for a while. In the permission the world, probably like they will still do in a way that in the traditional way, right? They do not have to have crypto, but in a permissionless world, I think it's very natural for the crypto or blockchain to be the settlement layer for all the AI agents.
Yeah, that makes total sense. My last question would be, you are living in US and you have been investing a lot of founders from Asia and Western. What do you see the advantage and disadvantage being a Asian or Western founders, and what will be your advice to them?
Okay, so basically the advantages and disadvantages of Western and Eastern founders, right? I was always joking that the Western founders are better at doing performance art.
Mm.
If you know what I mean.
What is that? Performance art.
Performance art, right? Basically, like let's use NFT, right? As example,
Mm.
all the top NFTs are from the Western founders.
Yeah.
The NFTs are like luxury goods, just like the luxury goods, right? Most of the brands, right? I mean the traditional brand, the bags or watches come from the Western world as well, right? They are good at building a strong brand. I think this is kind of a cultural dominance over the Eastern. This happens in many areas, right? Not only luxury goods, but also if you look at the movies, right? Like
Mm.
movie from Hollywood can definitely become more popular globally. But if you talk about the movies from like some Eastern countries, right, it's very. I mean, it's possible, but there are some outliers. But overall speaking, it's very difficult for the Eastern movies to like become popular globally. I think with
Yes.
this is the same case here, right? There's this very clear cultural dominance of the Western world over the Eastern world, and this is also reflected in the crypto. You see all the major public chain infra projects, I would say 80-90% or even more are from the Western world, right? All the On the other hand, of course, all the operation heavy, right, exchanges, including the centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges, come from the Eastern founders. I think my conclusion was we just need to. There are things that the Eastern and Western founders are good at, respectively. We
Mm.
should just do wherever we are good at instead of like, being annoyed by, what's happening, the situation in the industry, like, oh, I have to like build something that to just in order to compete, right, with the Western world. I have to build
Yes.
a big public chain in order to compete with the Western founder. I just don't think that's necessary. But I think this is also a good opportunity to the Eastern founders, because I do think we are entering into a stage where we have to pay more attention to the fundamental, right, to the real users. Otherwise, the industry won't last long, to be honest, right? This is a good time for the Eastern founders to build something in the application layer to grab real users as well.
Yeah. And also, I think, there are two very motivating examples and role model. Actually, the most profitable top two company in the crypto, actually, they are non-Western founders. USDT, they circulating in most of the emerging market and with 13 billion profit. And Binance, the dominant one, also is a Asian, platform from the very day one, right?
Exactly. But I think Tether they're from Europe, right? They're not Asian.
Yes, they're from Europe, but they, succeed in Asia and the emerging market.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, USDT is mainly I think used by the Eastern users, right? Not much in the US.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Awesome, cool. Well, thank you, Eric. I think that's pretty much for today, and I really appreciate your time. Look forward to our next episode.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Bill, for having me.
Well, that's all for today on Build It Up. We will be back next week with another inspiring guest. Subscribe now so you will never miss our amazing interviews. Until next time, this is Bill Chen. Goodbye and take care.